In today's session, we shall discuss Cartesian method. Every domain of knowledge, may it be religion, science or philosophy, is marked out by its specific method or methods. A method is the starting point and guiding light to verify the soundness of all previous knowledge and to attain further new knowledge in a certain area of study and investigation. In Chaya Roy's book Studies in Philosophical Methods, method is defined as the way in which fruitful starting points and procedures are determined. As we know well, scientific method has its definite starting point, namely the data collected by the empirical methods of observation and or experiment. But it is not possible to assume the same starting point in the case of philosophical studies, because its basic component, namely metaphysics, is not a scientific discipline, as it transcends all apparent phenomena to seek what is essentially and invariably present in one and all phenomena. As A.J. Ayer points out, philosophy is to be distinguished from other sciences not by its subject matter, but by its method. The turning points in the history of philosophy are marked not only by the disputing positions of philosophers, but also by the different methods they have adopted. Thus, there are dialectical, logico-mathematical, analytical and phenomenological methods used by different philosophers in different times. Today, in this session, we shall consider the method introduced by the great French philosopher René Descartes. His lifetime is between 1596 and 1650. His method is relevant in philosophical inquiries even today. Cartesian method is distinguished as the logico-mathematical method that he prescribed as necessary for philosophical inquiries also. Descartes is regarded as a founder of modern Western philosophy, as also of modern continental rationalism. He regarded philosophy and its method as crucial to the human pursuit of knowledge. It is clear from the Cartesian view. He says, thus philosophy as a whole is like a tree whose roots are metaphysics, whose trunk is physics and whose branches which issue from this trunk are all other sciences. Descartes is regarded as a founder of modern Western philosophy with Francis Bacon, as also of modern continental rationalism. He regarded philosophy and its method as crucial to the human pursuit of knowledge. It is clear from the Cartesian view, as he says, thus philosophy as a whole is like a tree whose roots are metaphysics, whose trunk is physics and whose branches which issue from this trunk are all other sciences. Descartes' famous work, the Discourse on Method, carried out his attack on the scholastic method based on the authority of sacred texts of the Catholic Church. His aim was to find out and establish the possibility of discovering truth without the help of some external authority, for example, the holy books and the clergymen. Thus, thought or reason, as the innate faculty of every individual human being, is the center and sanction of the whole of Cartesian rationalism as well as the Cartesian method. That is why E.W.F. Tomlin observes the discourse on method is the charter of scientific humanism. Now, we shall come to the basic tenets of Cartesian method. An easy way for this is to begin with his famous aphorism Cogito ergo sum, which means I am thinking, therefore I exist. This famous dictum of Descartes implies a reversal of our common sense understanding that recognizes existence as the precondition or the preceding condition of all life activities, including thinking. And how Descartes proves his Cogito principle is also the finger post to understand the technique and goal of Cartesian method. But before coming to the technique involved in the method of understanding unfolding philosophical truths, we shall see what the method aims at. We have already mentioned that his criticism of the scholastic method focused on its failure to arrive at certainty in knowledge. Descartes opined that different scholastic thinkers had held different views on the same subject, because their epistemological foundations were precisely unstable. Hence, Descartes challenged the reliability of scholastic method and developed his own method that served the following goals. Now, we shall see the goals of Cartesian method one by one. First of all, Descartes insisted that we should aim at acquiring a body of certain and self-evident truths. Here, you have to see what is the precise meaning of self-evident truth. In philosophy, especially in modern Western philosophy, Descartes and Kant had conceived something that we term pure thinking and pure conditions of knowledge. So, when we say that a certain piece of knowledge is self-evident or pure, it means that that piece of knowledge does not require the epistemological support of any other piece of knowledge or judgment except that principle or truth itself. Secondly, Descartes emphasized that one should not depend upon the opinion of others, but always depend upon one's own thinking or one's own reasoning is the Cartesian way. And third is that according to Descartes, mathematics provides us with the model of indubitable, that is again self-evident propositions. And finally, the criterion of certain knowledge is that it should be clear and distinct. And before coming to a detailed discussion of these points, it is necessary to note Descartes' strong interest in mathematics, and this had been the case with other prominent modern thinkers like Leibniz. Descartes had chosen a career in the Dutch army before becoming known as a philosopher. He had a short spell of career in the Dutch army, which gave him the opportunity to apply his mathematical interests for solving the problems in military engineering. And in Holland, Descartes could establish friendship with the great Dutch mathematician Beekman, to whom his essay on algebra was dedicated. This is the intellectual background of Descartes' emphasis on mathematics as the model of certain and self-evident propositions, which we call axioms of truth. And this term axiom of truth is very crucial to understand Cartesian method and Cartesian epistemology. Descartes had insisted on a project of human knowledge that would ensure a system of thought with mathematical certainty and precision. This should be the case of all types of knowledge, may it be scientific or philosophical. According to Descartes, only the mathematical method is completely free from authority, because no authority shall disprove the truth of mathematical axioms. And we shall demonstrate this Cartesian emphasis on mathematical method by taking an example. We all know that it is not possible to deny the truth of the mathematical principle that the sum of any two numbers will be higher in value than the given numbers. And similar is the case of the geometrical axiom, which we all know well. The sum of the angles of a triangle is equal to two right angles. And such indubitable and indisputable propositions are the axioms upon which the strong edifice of mathematical knowledge is built. So far we have seen that Descartes had a strong inclination to prove that the mathematical axioms are self-evident and not affected by any empirical considerations. Now, Descartes wanted to extend this reliable method of mathematics into the domain of philosophy also. It was, as he believed, necessary for liberating philosophical thinking from its conventional skepticism. Most of the disputes and errors in philosophical knowledge, Descartes argued, are due to the lack of a sound axiomatic foundation. Philosophers should therefore explore into the absolutely certain first principles. I stress the word first principles, because they are very crucial to understand the goal of Cartesian method. And these first principles are ever beyond doubt and error, because they are, as we have already shown, self-evident. Descartes' project to acquire such clear and self-evident propositions as the basis of philosophical reflection is the core of his method, which we consider as Cartesian method. The procedure, therefore, is to apply reasoning to discover the basic axioms of knowledge before we proceed to acquire more and more knowledge in any area of study. So, axiomatic truth or knowledge is the foundation of all further knowledge that we consider genuinely true. Descartes insisted that our search for knowledge should not be based on random steps, but on a definite methodological procedure. In his famous work, Discourse on Method, Descartes had prescribed the 4 rules of his method. First one is, before accepting anything as true, it must be known to us clearly and distinctly. So, clarity of knowledge is the criterion of the truth of knowledge according to Descartes. The step is to divide each problem, any complex problem, into its necessary simple parts. Then direct our thoughts in an orderly way from simple to complex and explain them in an orderly way is the Cartesian method. It is necessary to make a complete enumeration of the problem without omitting any component. So, we should consider the total system of knowledge before deciding its truth or falsity. We shall consider the starting point of Cartesian method. How to begin the method is our concern here. The starting point of Cartesian method is deliberate doubt. Doubt, all that can be doubted, is the Cartesian way. But when we take the Cartesian concept of doubt, we should make clear that it does not mean skepticism. That is, skepticism in philosophy is the position that doubts the possibility, the very possibility of true knowledge. But Cartesian skepticism or Cartesian doubt is not exactly philosophical skepticism. It is not psychological doubt, but methodical doubt. Doubt is the beginning of reasoning process that leads us to indubitable certainty. So, in the Cartesian context, understand doubt as the path to indubitable certainty or absolute certainty beyond any doubt. So, doubt is the starting point that leads us to any truth that is not indubitable. In the world of experience, sense experience for example, we come across many illusions and hallucinations. Different people experience things differently. Hence, the truth of sense experience is always probable and changing. This is a fact that we all accept. And it is the case with imagination and customary beliefs also. Here, Descartes follows Plato in elevating reason to the status of the most reliable path to genuine knowledge. That is why we say Cartesian system is or epistemology is rationalism, because he recognized reason as the only reliable path to genuine knowledge, and in this case Descartes had strictly followed Plato's spirit of idealism. However, there is a difference between Plato's concept of reasoning and Cartesian concept of reasoning. Plato had conceived dialectical reasoning as a power to be acquired by a gifted few through hard practice. So, it is reserved for a gifted few who have that capacity for acquiring rational knowledge. But for Descartes, reasoning is the innate power common to all sane minds. That is, every human being deserving the title human being is innately, naturally rational, and therefore, is capable of rational thinking, is the Cartesian position. Descartes had prescribed specific rules for the direction of human mind. Here we shall consider the third and fourth rules for the direction of human mind, which explains intuition and deduction as the ultimate source of indubitable knowledge. We must try to understand the specific connotation of intuition. Intuition in epistemology is the primary source of all self-evident knowledge acquired immediately. I stress the word immediately, which means without the medium or aid of sense perception or authority or any other source other than reasoning. So, it is the unclouded mental attention as Descartes defines it. From the axioms we understand by intuition. Now, we can draw further necessary conclusions. So, actually Cartesian method is combining intuition, which is the way to grasp axioms of truth, and from this intuition or this axiomatic basis of knowledge, we can draw further necessary conclusions by deduction. Hence, Cartesian method insists on the epistemological foundation of intuitively acquired axioms of knowledge for deriving true conclusions by deduction. Any knowledge without this foundation of axioms is always liable to be false. Now, at this point we can summarize the characteristics of Cartesian method. First of all, the foundation of Cartesian method is axiomatic, that is intuitive knowledge. As I have told you, the pure knowledge, any knowledge without the constraints of sense perception, that is pure intuitive knowledge of axiomatic truths is the basis and source of further deductions. So, the starting point is intuitive reasoning. Secondly, the model of Cartesian method is mathematical knowledge, that is the propositions of arithmetic and the axioms of geometry are self-evident and they need no proof. Then, the technique of Cartesian method is rational intuition, that is the reasoning power of human mind, which is innate, is the means to grasp axiomatic truths, because it is free from the limitations of sense perception, authority and any other customary means to acquire knowledge. That is why we call them pure axiomatic self-evident knowledge, which Descartes declared as clear knowledge, distinct knowledge. Now, it is clear that mathematical intuitions are axiomatic. We have already shown how Descartes had proved their purity, and now Descartes could extend this principle of axiomatic truth into the domain of philosophy. That is why we consider Cartesian method, even though it is termed logico-mathematical method, we consider it as applicable to philosophical problems in the domains of metaphysics, epistemology, etc. Here we consider mainly Descartes' Cogito Principle and causal argument for the existence of God to demonstrate the application of Cartesian method in metaphysics. So, the most important thing is to understand the implications of the famous Cartesian dictum cogito ergo sum. As we have shown, it means by translation into English, we can see that it means, some people say it translates it as I think therefore I exist, but most precise translation is I am thinking I am thinking, therefore, I exist. Now, this Cogito principle becomes the axiom of all human reasoning according to Descartes. Now, we shall analyze how he proves it. How do we understand the proposition I am thinking? My question is, how do we understand the proposition? By what means we grasp the proposition I am thinking? Sure, not by sense experience. There is no need of any medium other than thinking to grasp the judgment, and hence it is immediate and self-evident truth. You just consider a person thinking that I am thinking. Nobody can dispute it. It is as true as the mathematical proposition 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So, Descartes proves how the metaphysical axiom of cogito ergo sum is logically equivalent to the mathematical propositions like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. In Descartes' own words, he says, cogito ergo sum is the first and most certain knowledge that occurs to one who philosophizes in an orderly manner. Like the axiom of cogito, the core of Descartes' proofs for the existence of God is another intuitive judgment, namely the principle of causality, which we consider as a law of nature, which we understand by intuition. According to Descartes, one of the innate ideas in human mind is that of God. It needs no further proof because we know intuitively that nothing can come out of nothing. This is called the principle of causation or the law of causality. Descartes argues that my existence as a thinking being is self-evident, which he had already proved by the Cogito principle, and I cannot come into existence without a cause that precedes my existence according to the law of causation. God is therefore that eternal and perfect being of all beings, including myself. Descartes argued that such a perfect being must be self-caused. It cannot have another thing as its cause, that is, God is self-caused, uncaused. Because if it is not the case, suppose God has a cause, logically we have to admit an infinite regress in conceiving causality. So, if we argue that I have a cause and that cause is God, and therefore, God has a cause, you have to search for God as the cause of me, then you have to search for the cause of God, and further the cause of God, it goes on infinitely, which is a logical fallacy called the infinite regress. In order to avoid this infinite regress, Descartes argued that God is intuited, and that intuition of God is the intuition of a self-caused being of all beings. And this causal argument for the existence of God is based on the axiom of causality, according to which nothing is uncaused or everything is caused. And Cartesian method is even today recognized as valuable and fruitful in our search for truth in any area of study. For example, his emphasis on clarity and certainty of knowledge as the benchmark of truth remains the ideal for scientists and philosophers alike. In all the areas of knowledge, we consider truth depends upon, or truth can be communicated only if the expression of knowledge is clear and distinct and certain. So, it remains the ideal, epistemological ideal for all scientists and philosophers even today. Another important feature of Cartesian method is rejection of authority as the standard of truth. Certainly, it is the motivation to doubt any piece of knowledge until it is proved on the basis of the axioms of truth. For example, in physical sciences, we consider the laws of nature as axiomatic, and we have already stated that mathematical propositions are the model for axiomatic truth. Anyway, critics of Cartesian method have questioned the validity of applying mathematical method to all other disciplines. Many critics argue that philosophy is not a mathematical discipline, hence it is not proper to apply mathematical method to a discipline like philosophy. And we have seen that Descartes had begun his philosophical inquiry from the intuitive certainty of cogito, which is not at all doubted. But Descartes, like any other rationalist idealist thinker, could not establish the existence of pure thinking without reference to objective reality. A thinking mind is always in a body, and a body is always in a world. So, we cannot actually recognize some piece of thinking or knowledge as pure or free from empirical considerations. Anyway, in spite of all these objections and criticisms, Descartes certainly remains one of the great methodologists in the rank of Socrates and Aristotle. You can try the following assignments. First one, define method and bring out its significance in science and philosophy. Second, evaluate the contribution of René Descartes in developing a philosophical method. Third one, bring out the characteristic features of Cartesian method. And fourth, describe how Descartes' interest in mathematics had influenced his philosophical method. The important reference books are A.J. Ayer's The Revolution in Philosophy, published by Macmillan, and there is a textbook by Abhijit Kundu and others. The title is The Humanities, Methodology and Perspectives, and the basic text will be Chaya Rai's Studies in Philosophical Methods, published by Jabalpur University. And you can also try A History of Philosophy written by Frank Tilly. The specific pages are from 303 to 307. You can also see Tomlin's book Philosophers of East and West. Again the pages on Descartes from 350 to 355. And we shall see some useful websites that deal with Cartesian philosophy and the Cartesian method. You can get the article entitled The Cartesian System on Britannica.com. Then there is an article Descartes' Life and Works, which you will get on the online encyclopedia Stanford Encyclopedia, available at plateau.stanford.edu. And there is a very good article by Broughton. Title is Descartes' Method of Doubt, that is available on Princeton education site. And philosophypages.com has an informative article, Descartes, a new approach. And there is another one on philosophy.tamo.education entitled Descartes' Methodic Doubt. And a very useful article is available in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, René Descartes' Scientific Method. Thank you for listening to this session.